Welcome everybody. Yeah, so Mike said we're gonna go through some product updates from Cisco Live. We're also going to talk about kind of the future of how Cisco Networking integrates either whether you want to manage networking on-prem or in the cloud. We have a platform for every scenario for you. Um, yeah, so we'll kick it off with wireless. So again, some of this may be review, but I'm going to kind of go through some things pretty quickly. Ask questions if you have questions. We are more than happy to circle back if we need to. So the latest greatest of Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi 7. Wi-Fi 7 has been is 25 years of Wi-Fi innovations. Just a little quick level set of where we are in terms of Wi-Fi, starting all the way back in 1999. We are now in 2024, 25 years of wireless. And through that time, multiple innovations have happened to the point where now with Wi-Fi 7, also known as 802.11be, that is wrong in the top corner. I apologize. That should not say 11ax. It should say 11be. But that is the latest generation Wi-Fi standard. And what all this innovation has allowed us to do is get to a point where wireless is no longer this luxury or a nice to have thing. It's actually a requirement. Companies and users expect wireless to work, and they expect it to work as well as a wired connection that they plug into at their desk when they drop their laptop on their docking station or what have you, right? Other innovations that have happened through the years, we've added. We started off with 2.4 gigahertz in the original release of 802.11b. We added 5 gigahertz with 802.11a, and we've progressed, and now we have 802.11ax, 6E, which is where we introduced Wi-Fi 6 gigahertz to the Wi-Fi spectrum. And here we are with Wi-Fi 7 in 2024, which gives us all kinds of other cool new things like multi-link operation, enhanced security, 320 megahertz channels if you want to do that, and all kinds of other things. So we won't go too deep into this, but I did want to level set where we sit in the world of Wi-Fi these days and how we got here. So Cisco's venture into Wi-Fi 7. So this is, we released these access points in December. These are our flagship Wi-Fi 7 access points for carpeted office space, as well as complex RF environments like auditoriums, theaters, warehouses, locations with high ceilings, things along those lines. Lots of specs here, lots of things to talk about. Probably won't go into too much detail, but we've added things like ultra wideband to these, which allows us to do things like AP auto locate, where APs will place themselves on the map within your management tool of choice or platform of choice automatically. It will also allow us to do things like sub-meter location accuracy. So if we're trying to track devices or locate or people within a location, we can do that very accurately. Also, I will call out the majority of Wi-Fi 7 now has so many radios built in, so many features, so much power that the majority of these access points will require more than 30 watts of power over your PoE ports. So just something to keep in the back of your head as we talk about going forward. So like I said, these are the APs we introduced in December. As of 2 weeks ago in Cisco Live in Amsterdam, we introduced the next version of our Wi-Fi 7 access point, which is the 9172. So this is a good overview of all the access points that we currently have in the Wi-Fi 7 space. The 9172 fits a nice niche for sort of low density deployments where we don't necessarily have to worry about a ton of people coming in and out, but we still need to provide that superior level of Wi-Fi connectivity, wireless connectivity. It comes in two flavors. It comes in the ceiling mount version, which is sort of your traditional mount this at 12 feet sort of maximum on a ceiling in an office. It also comes in what we call the it's the H model, so the 9172H. It is a wall plate form factor, typically used in things like hotel rooms, dorm rooms, places where we may need to provide localized Wi-Fi connectivity, but also have some wired connectivity as well. It has wired ports built in as well. So that kind of rounds out our portfolio for the moment. You can see the sort of the good, better, best tiering. So 6 spatial streams, 12 spatial streams on those 2 in the middle. I will call out the 9176G1 is that sort of oddball in this mix where it has a built-in directional antenna for things like warehouses and auditoriums and things like that. And then the 9178 is the beast of an access point, the 9178 for high performance, high density environments. All right. So these are the two access points we were just talking about, the 9162. So I called out the fact that most Wi-Fi 7 will require more than 30 watts. These will operate at 30 watts in full feature mode. So if we do need to support older technology, older switching technology, older infrastructures, these will operate at full 2x2 spatial streams on each radio across the board. The other access points will as well operate on 30 watts, but in a reduced capacity. So we can go into that in more detail if you have questions about that. But they all have 3 radios, 2.4 gig, 5 gig, and 6 gigahertz. And there's some crazy specs on those if you want to take a look at those. And as with all our Wi-Fi 7 access points, we now have what we call a global use AP. So if you've ever, this has been less of an issue in the cloud managed world in the past, but for on-prem customers, there's always been a region-specific access point that we've needed to order. That is no longer. There's a single SKU for each access point, regardless of where it's going to get deployed in the world, as well as how it's going to get deployed. So we no longer have to order a cloud-managed version of the access point or an on-prem version of the access point. It is auto-detecting whether it is registered in dashboard in the cloud or it's registering to an on-prem controller. No need to do anything else or order any other devices for that. And then if you want to nerd out on Wi-Fi 7 with us, we have 2 Wi-Fi 7 roadshows coming up in March and April, one in King of Prussia, one in Cherry Hill. We'll make sure we get those invites out as soon as we have them. Ron, I don't know if you want me to take questions now or if you want me to save them to the end. I don't know if you're getting any in the chats, but I can't see those.
Yeah, no questions so far.
Okay, cool. So we'll move into switching. So as Mike said, we can now manage, I shouldn't say now, I mean, we have been able to manage Catalyst switches in dashboard for quite a few years now, natively. So the Catalyst 9300 can be adopted into dashboard and managed just like any other cloud native switch that we've ever had in the Meraki world. And with this, we get a bunch of advancements. We get to take advantage of the ASICs that are custom ASICs that are in the Cisco switches, as well as things like in the future, maybe talk about ISSU. But things like now we can take advantage of secure group tags or TrustSec in those switches, as well as full NetFlow, things along those lines that we've not been able to do in the past. So we get to leverage the power of Catalyst and those ASICs in the cloud. What is new is, and we've kind of had 2 ways of doing that in the past. We've had this cloud managed Catalyst switch, and then we've had this concept of what we called monitor Catalyst switch. And there were 2 totally different sort of shifts in the night way of connecting to dashboard. What we've done, the 2 BUs have come together. The 2 business units are now co-developing software together. And out of that partnership, we now have what we call cloud native iOS XE. This is the same iOS XE code that you'll run on any other Catalyst switch you've ever run, but it now has the built-in connectivity to dashboard. We call this Next Tunnel. Probably don't need to know that, but if you see that referenced, you'll know why. And like I said, we've had 2 different modes. We've had native management mode, and we've had cloud monitoring mode. With this adoption of native iOS XE, we no longer have 2 necessarily different ways of doing this. We now have cloud mode. But we have cloud mode in 2 different ways. We can do cloud operating mode, which is that sort of traditional. We want to manage the switch in the cloud, and all configuration, single source of truth happens in the cloud. And then we have this hybrid operating mode, which if you have a deployment of Catalyst switches, we're managing them on-prem. We have our own management platforms already. We can invite those into the dashboard and still get features and functionality that we would get out of a fully managed switch with maintaining that local configuration of that local iOS XE configuration that everybody's used to. So you can see here, cloud operating mode managed exclusively in dashboard. We manage the configuration dashboard, push it to iOS XE. Any configuration changes are done through dashboard, and on the hybrid mode, configurations are done on iOS XE, and we back that configuration up to the cloud. And all that configuration is done through traditional means, CLI or some other on-prem managed solution, right? And just to reinforce that fact, we have in the hybrid mode, the single source of truth is iOS XE, right? Existing management tools. It sends all its data up to the cloud. And then in the cloud operating mode, we manage the configuration of the cloud and then update iOS XE from the cloud. So it just, it brings all of that single source of truth up to the cloud. And benefits of that, right? Having a single platform, we can now leverage things like the APIs to do full configuration management or automation tools in the cloud, things like that, without having to manage each device individually, right? And some of the things you get in either mode, so either running cloud operating mode or hybrid operating mode, we still get all of the real-time information about the switch, about the health of the switch, about the port health, about traffic statistics, all of that. We get the application visibility, things like from NBAR 2, which Cisco has had forever. We now leverage that in dashboard. We can do swim. We can do iOS XE upgrades. We can do schedule those upgrades through dashboard as we have for, again, anything that's been natively managed in dashboard, whether it's a traditional classic Meraki switch or if it's a Catalyst switch that's been managed in dashboard. And then we also have this new concept called Cloud CLI. Now, Cloud CLI is basically our ability to proxy a connection to the CLI of any switch that is in dashboard, either in hybrid or cloud mode. And you can run show commands to your heart's content. I think one of the coolest things about this is historically, you may not have been able to see what's happening under the covers to your Catalyst switch if it's been managed in dashboard. That all goes away because you can now run show commands on a fully managed cloud operating mode switch in dashboard. So if you ever had a question about what we're doing, what the configuration looks like, what the heck does spanning tree look like on a cloud managed Catalyst switch, you can do a show command and see it all right there in front of you. Very, very handy. And we do this, again, all through iOS XE. How do we make this happen? So if you have a Catalyst switch running the correct version of code, we will now have native Meraki commands built into the CLI. So we go to the CLI, we type service Meraki connect, we get this output, which tells us a couple of things, one of which is the cloud ID. The cloud ID is what's historically been known as the Meraki serial number. That is its identification to bring itself into dashboard. So once we do this, we now have the cloud ID of the switch, and then we can see that we have now connected to the dashboard. So if you run the show Meraki connect command in dashboard or in the CLI, we'll see that we have a active connection to dashboard. Cool, your switch is ready to be onboarded into dashboard. Now what? Now we go into dashboard and we choose how we want the switch to be brought into dashboard. So we can bring it in again in cloud operating mode or hybrid operating mode. If you have a switch that is currently in production, passing traffic, has configurations on it, we don't want to bring that into dashboard in a cloud operating mode, because what that does is it basically says, hey, we're going to take the switch over. We're going to let you configure it through dashboard. I will pay no attention to any configuration on the switch anymore. That's great if you were converting some switches that you have on a shelf. That's great if you have switches that you say, hey, we want to deploy these in cloud operating mode to a new site that have no configurations on them and we're going to start fresh. That's what we would do. Hybrid operating mode, if you have existing devices with existing configs in production, that's what we want to do. We want to bring those into dashboard in hybrid operating mode, and that gives you all that visibility into the switch. It lets you do your software updates as well as get access to the CLI through dashboard. All right, so that is that's Catalyst native iOS XE, but it's not all about Catalyst still. At Cisco Live in Amsterdam, we announced a new classic Meraki switch, the MS-150. This switch fits into the portfolio of switches that can be cloud managed, as you see here. We have all the Catalyst switches that can be cloud managed. There's more to come very, very soon. The Catalyst 9200L is the latest addition to that. But we have the MS-150. The MS-150 is actually, there's a lot going on in this little box. As you can see, we're doing MGig. We're doing PoE++ or 60 watts of UPoE. It is a stackable switch. And it's in a very tiny form factor. We're also introducing features like perpetual PoE and fast PoE. So if this is deployed in an IoT environment, in a building environment, where we're powering, cameras or door access controls, what have you, and the switch has to reboot, we have to do a software update, whatever it is, that power on that PoE port will stay powered as we reboot that switch. So we don't drop things. We don't drop phones. When that switch comes back up, all they have to do is continue passing traffic, right? So that makes it really nice for those applications where we can't or don't want to lose power. Maybe we don't need network connectivity for something, but we still need to power. Cameras are a great example of that. Fast PoE is actually also pretty cool. That basically says, hey, we lost power to the switch. We're going to power it back on. There's a state that happens in that switch that says, hey, we know which switch ports were powered. We're going to turn that power on the next time we power the switch on before we even boot. So it starts that powering of the PoE ports that we knew were powered, and again brings those devices back up faster. It's a great switch for adopting Wi-Fi 7. So I said we have 5 gigabit MGig ports. We also have 60 watts of PoE. So if you want to take advantage of those bigger, badder 9176, 9178 access points that require more than 30 watts of power, great option to do that. It's a layer 2 switch. However, we will be introducing some level of routing on it in the not too distant future, some very basic routing functionality, as well as, and it comes out of the box ready to do adaptive policy or the cloud implementation of secure group tags. And let's see, too many clicks. Here we go. So this is the lineup. You can see we have an option for pretty much everything, from 24 to 48 ports, non-powered to powered to UPoE powered. So lots of options. And then you can kind of see where it fits in the product portfolio. So we have the MS130, which is the super low end layer 2 switch that does, I shouldn't say low end, it does 30 watts of power. It does 2.5 gigs of MGig in some cases. And then we have the Catalyst line above it, which we can do layer 3 on natively. And then the MS130 kind of fits right in that middle, that sort of tweener spot, where if we need a nice short depth switch, and we only need layer 2, but we need features like UPoE and MGig, we have that for you. All right. And again, just a quick round out of features of this, but I do want to call out the adaptive policy feature, because that does allow us to do things like microsegmentation, segmentation at the edge, in a very, very compact box, something we've not really had the option to do before. And that will come into play here shortly when we talk about the next item that was announced at Cisco Live. All right, Access Manager. This is pretty cool. We've been waiting for this for a little while. So historically, I think if you've heard me or Wes or anybody within Cisco talk about security recently, we found that as we apologies for the build out, as we come back to work after being remote for so long, people are realizing that our security posture has been great for people accessing our network, accessing our resources by VPN, by the cloud. Heck, even by our wireless, we've had better security, network access security than we have for our wired ports. And I think a lot of that, regardless of whether it's wired or wireless, a lot of the issues that we've had, or the challenges that we've had with enabling that sort of security posture at the edge, has been the requirement to have something that's doing that posturing or that checking, right? Is this person allowed to connect to the network? What is the identity of this person that's connecting to my network? And then it's incumbent upon us to do something with that decision. But it's never been really our decision as the network layer to say, is this person allowed on my network? Except maybe if we're doing like pre-shared key on a wireless, but then that gives us no indication of what that identity of that person or that device is that's connecting to my network. So historically, what have we had to do? We've had to run something like a Radius server, Cisco ICE, on-prem to make those connections to something like an Entra ID, some sort of identity provider, to say, is this device or is this user allowed on my network? And if so, what level of access do I provide to them? And again, we've been doing that with VPNs for a long time. We've been kind of doing that with wireless for a long time, but the wired edge has kind of been left alone there. But either in any case, it required that level of infrastructure on-prem to do that. So we've introduced Access Manager, which is our cloud-delivered policy engine, basically. So what we're going to do is we will take a lot of that functionality that you've historically done on-prem with ICE and deliver it through an as-a-service model. So directly in dashboard, we can now interface with an identity provider, Entra ID. We can do authentication against device types. We can do MAC auth bypass, things along those lines. So we can do all of that and write policy based on the responses we get back from that identity provider, for example, to determine what level of access a user gets to my network. So I think the benefits here are pretty obvious, but I don't need to run my own radius server anymore, right? Now, I shouldn't say never, right? This is a product that is in development. I shouldn't say in development. It is developed, but we are adding features to it, right? This is the first release of it, and it may not be for everybody. If you guys have ICE already, if you're already doing access control, this may be below you guys, because ICE is super powerful and we can do so many things with ICE. This is there to provide you with powerful but simplistic access control to your network based on identity. But obviously, we can reduce if you don't have an ICE instance already. If you're using something like a Microsoft NPS that you're running and you don't want to maintain it anymore, you're moving everything to the cloud, this might be a good option, right? We manage the scaling of it. We deploy it all for you. Basically, all you have to do is connect Entra ID and write some policy. We can control based on certificates. We can control access based on user identity, and we can do things like MAC auth bypass or based on MAC address. And this is actually pretty cool because once we do that, once we have a device authenticated, we get more information back from Entra ID, group information, certificate information. We can even pass back effectively radius attributes. And what we can do with that information is apply policy to those devices once they're connected to my network, right? And again, switching or wireless, we can apply adaptive policy groups. That's what allows us to do that super detailed microsegmentation. Add an HR user to an HR group, so they only have access to HR, HR related applications, whereas network engineering may have access to more things. We can apply layer 3 ACLs or in dashboard group policies to things. We can do something as, I shouldn't say basic, but as basic as putting a user on a VLAN based on their identity. Even like, hey, this is a phone. We identified it as a phone, put it on the phone VLAN, right? And we can have that phone VLAN dynamically assigned across our network. And then IPSK is cool. IPSK allows us to do encrypted connectivity to a network without using identity. So it incorporates that MAC auth bypass, but also gives us pre-shared key like encryption, whereas we may have otherwise only had an open connection to the network, and MAC addresses can be spoofed and things along those lines. So that's a pretty powerful feature that we can do in the cloud. So like I said, we can do ETLS, certificate authentication with Entra ID. So if you're running secure managed endpoints with an MDM, you're pushing certificates down. We can use that certificate, which is probably the most seamless way to deploy this because it doesn't require any user intervention, right? We're taking a certificate off of an endpoint that's authenticated using that certificate and said, hey, what rights do I give this this device or this user? We can do username and password. User connects to the network, enters username and password, check against Entra ID, same idea. And then unmanaged endpoints, MAC auth bypass with IPSK gives us a really easy way to say, hey, I've got a printer out there that doesn't have the ability to do any sort of authentication. Entra ID has no idea about it, but we know the MAC address of this printer. We can now put it on the printer network, assign policy to it, make sure it's not talking to the internet if it's not supposed to, things along those lines. And it's supported on all current generation MS switches, all cloud managed Catalyst switches, everything we talked about before, and all Wi-Fi 5 and newer access points running MR30 or 30.6 code or newer. So very easy to take advantage of. And it is in dashboard in early access now. So you can, I'll check on that. It's supposed to be in dashboard in early access now. You can turn it on and play with it. And if it's not, it will be shortly. If there's any questions on any of that, please let me know. I'm going to do a quick demo if we have time at the end here and show you all of that. But that I'm super excited about that. All right. Shifting gears a little bit. This kind of comes into the world of security. Not that we haven't been talking about security already, but this does show the power of cloud and as a service integrations. So Cisco has this really cool product called XDR. I don't pretend to be an XDR expert, but the idea is we feed all kinds of security related information to it. It looks at it all, correlates it, and says, okay, there's bad stuff happening. That's my simplistic view of XDR. But what this allows us to do is natively in dashboard to send data to XDR. So with a click, okay, 3 clicks, you can take all of the data that you're seeing on your secure edge device in your branches, in your HQ, wherever, send it up to XDR and let XDR do what it does with it. It'll do what it does with it if you just send our data to it from the cloud, from the MX devices, from everything we're seeing there, from an IPS IDS perspective, a flow perspective, all of that. But it'll also integrate it with any other security products that you have, Cisco or not, which is really, really cool. I don't know of any other. I don't know of any other solution that's as easy as that. Honestly, like when we were doing this in beta, I did that. I'm like, oh, that's it, and it just worked. It's really cool. But what that allows us to do is it does a couple of things. So when we turn on XDR in dashboard for our security edge devices, it starts just flowing that data up to your XDR environment. But it's not a one-way street. We'll receive those events down in dashboard too. So you can see down here, we actually have XDR events showing up in dashboard. So, if we're just in dashboard, our world is in dashboard, but we see XDR events happening in dashboard, we can actually cross-launch. We can get data about that event, first of all, right, within dashboard. But then we can actually cross-launch into XDR and actually do a full investigation through XDR, right? If we deem it necessary, right? Just one of the very cool integrations that we have in cloud in dashboard going live with MX version 19 code, which is now available. Continuing down the trend of security. So org-wide firewall policies in dashboard, first off, is huge. So if you've ever had to manage firewall policies anywhere in any platform, it kind of sucks to have to go to each device and manage firewall policies everywhere. You're going to miss one, you're going to change something, and you're not going to change it everywhere. I think that's just the nature of the beast. One of the benefits of having a platform is the ability to do that from a centralized point of view, right? So why don't we do that now? Well, now we do. We can write firewall policy in dashboard and apply it across my entire organization in one fell swoop. The cool thing here is we can also do that based on identity. So we talked about identity with access control within my networks. Well, what do we do with that identity? We can write firewall policy based on that identity. We can use adaptive policy to write org-wide policy on that identity without having to think about things like, oh, this is the source IP address of the user network at site B, right? I can say, I want my users to not have access to my finance applications, whatever it might be, right? Rather than having to maintain lists of IP addresses and subnets and having to make sure that matches across the board. So org-wide firewall policy.
If I can just add to that, one of our scenarios is that we have some people who have like a corporate IT office and they have a bunch of branch locations. So to allow those branch locations to kind of manage themselves, what they can do is utilize this org-wide firewall policy so that they can establish that corporate policy, and then they can continue downstream, so they still have a little bit of that central control.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's not on this slide, but we actually extend this policy into our cloud firewall offering. So Cisco Secure Connect, which is natively managed in the dashboard, is our SSE solution. And what this allows us to do is manage not just the firewall policy that's on-prem on the MX, but extend that into our SSE solution, right? So regardless of whether that user is on-prem, remote, whatever, the same firewall policy we implement in dashboard follows that user. So one more level of integration in our in the SaaS-based offerings. All right. If there's no questions, I'll jump into quick demos here. Hey, I caught that just in time. All right. So I'll show you Access Manager first. So this is Access Manager. It's a new menu in the dashboard. There's some things in here that may look somewhat familiar, or not, but there's some new things as well. So we can maintain a local list of users if we want. So we don't have to integrate an IDP. So we can maintain local lists of users. But if we do integrate an IDP, it truly is as easy as coming into dashboard and saying, create my IDP. Gives me all the things I need to go to Entra ID to enable that sync between dashboard and Entra. And once you have that here, you'll have all of your users, all of your user groups listed, and you'll be able to write policy based on this. So then we can also create, we talked about doing things like MAC auth bypass. So if I don't have any way to authenticate a device, again, copiers, printers, IoT devices, cameras, whatever it might be, and I still want to allow those devices onto my network, I can define those here in my clients lists, right? And then once I create a client, I can assign things like an IPSK to them. So if I did have a situation where I said, hey, I want all of my copiers to still be encrypted when they connect to my network, here's the IPSK that I'm going to assign. So IPSK stands for Identity Pre-Shared Key. Basically what that means is I can have thousands of pre-shared keys on a single SSID, and each one of those pre-shared keys can be tied to a specific device or a specific user, right? So when that user authenticates using that pre-shared key, we still authenticate it using that pre-shared key, but we also authenticate it based on MAC address. So we're not relying on that MAC address being sent in clear text. When that device authenticates, we're still encrypting it all and not having to worry about MAC address spoofing. And then we can create client groups. So again, based on job role, based on device posture, whatever we want to do, we can create groups of devices together and write policy based on those groups. And then we can manage our certificates here if we wanted to do things like certificate-based authentication within Access Manager as well. So what do access rules look like within Access Manager? So we can come in here and say, hey, here's the default group. Anything that authenticates, here's what the access is. Here's what they get. This is their authorization that they get. We can say, hey, I want to look for an ETLS certificate. What do we want to look for in that certificate that validates that device or that user's authentication? We can write that policy here and say, okay, cool. They authenticated. We're going to drop them on VLAN 10. We can also say, I want to put them into an adaptive policy group. Adaptive policy groups are those SGT-based microsegmentation groups. So if it's an IoT device, I may want to write adaptive policy group that says, I only want my IoT devices, adaptive policy to say, I only want IoT devices to talk to other IoT devices, or IoT devices to only talk to their servers, right? Or again, I can write a policy that says, I want to apply group policy to this. I want to actually say, hey, this user is, a CEO. I don't want to apply any sort of traffic filtering to this user at all, right? We don't want any problems with the CEO. So you have those abilities to write, to change their authorization based on identity. And then, again, if we don't have any sort of authentication whatsoever, don't let them on my network. Easy as that. And then adaptive policies. This differs slightly from an ACL because we're basing this again on that user identity piece of the authentication. And if you're not familiar with SGTs are secure group tags that get applied to the traffic when it enters a device, either an access point or a switch, into the network. And that tag follows that traffic, that packet through the network. So it may be only locally relevant to the switch or the access point that we authenticate on, But it could also be relevant to, if we follow that to the data center, to apply policy in the data center based on that tag, right? But it's all based on the source identity and destination identity of services within my network. And what policy looks like here is we can say, hey, I want, in this case, sales to not access my IoT network, but I do want my sales, things in my sales groups to be able to access my sales resources. This could easily be, I don't want employees to talk to other employees, but I do want them to talk to services, right? And none of this is IP based. This is all identity based when a user joins the network. So we don't have to worry about source IPs, destination IPs anymore. So that's Access Manager. Super, super powerful in dashboard. We talked about layer 7 firewall rules, org-wide firewall rules. This implementation here is layer 7 only. This was the first iteration. This is being expanded upon. But you can see here, we can write a policy set in here that says, I want to, block Gmail. In this case, we're going to write a layer 7 rule, block Gmail, protocol any, from, now here's where I can apply that policy based on users, right? I only want, I don't want my, for some reason, finance users to access Gmail, right? And I can apply that based on network tag. So we can apply a tag to a specific network or any network within the dashboard. And I can say, I only want that to apply to my, my networks that have a specific tag on them, right? So super, super powerful to be able to do that org-wide. So if you do have an outbreak of something, you don't have to go to each individual network to make a change. Or you have security that says, hey, we've got a new policy, no Gmail allowed in my network. You can come in here and do that really quickly and easily. All right. Any questions in the chat? Are we good?
So good.
You're good.
All right, cool. All right. I'm going to flip back. We're going to change gears slightly here. So sort of in the same world of security. And if y'all aren't aware, we actually also have physical security as part of our cloud platform. And when I say physical security, I mean cameras and sensors, IoT devices, things like that. We did make 3 pretty big announcements at Cisco Live when it comes to physical security. One of which is the updated MV53 bullet camera. This thing is a beast. I don't have mine with me, otherwise I would show it to you. But it's meant to be mounted on high locations, but has very, very, very long focal range. So if we need to mount it high on a building and still be able to see license plates in a parking lot, we can do that. It has onboard recognition for things like people detection, vehicle detection. We can do things like attribute search on it and things like that directly on the camera versus having to send it off to some sort of server for post-processing. And this is a standard. I keep saying like this is table stakes for us now, but this is a standard feature on all of our cameras, all of our cameras going forward. Onboard processing of video. We also introduced this bad boy, the MX84X or MV84X. This camera actually has 4 cameras in it. There's actually 4 sensors built into this camera. And it's very handy in situations where you need to cover a 360-degree area with very high resolution. We've had a lot of customers come to us and say, hey, I need to do this, but in order to do it, I have to deploy 3 physical cameras or 4 physical cameras in the same place to do this. Well, this is our answer to that. It has the ability to do, we do infrared, we do, each camera is 5 megapixels of resolution. So add that up, that's a lot of megapixels for 4 cameras. And we also do the same functionality on camera, like motion search, attribute detection, all that good stuff. And what that allows us to do going forward is, this is also a new feature that's being introduced. It's cross camera tracking. So if we have an event at a retail store, for example, and say, hey, we saw this person leave the store with an item. We don't know where that item came from. We don't know where they were in the store. But let's take that shot we have them leaving the store, and let's find them on all the cameras that we saw them on previously. So we can do that now coming soon, in the Meraki Vision portal, which is our dedicated physical security application for cloud managed cameras. This is an enhancement upon what we call attribute search. Attribute search is if we said, hey, we saw somebody with a tan shirt stealing something from our store, we can go into dashboard, and I can show you this if, we guess we have time. We can go into dashboard and say, hey, or envision and say, hey, I want to see the person with the tan shirt. And it'll find all the people with the tan shirt in dashboard for us. And then we can pivot to, I want to find where this person was in my store previously. So let's take a look at that real quick now that we're talking about it. So this is Vision Portal. If you've not seen this before, this is our all things camera in dashboard. We can come in here and see all of our different cameras. We can come look at our video walls and create views for our security personnel as we're managing our physical security assets. But what I do want to show you is event search. So I'm going to look. Let's look at yesterday because it's pretty early in San Francisco today. So we're going to look all day yesterday. And I want to find, let's grab a stairwell camera because I know this person was going up and down the stairs. And I know they were wearing a blue shirt. So now, without having to really do anything or look at any video yet, I can find all the people going up and down the stairs on this particular view that had a blue shirt on, right? Maybe they didn't have a blue shirt, maybe they had a red shirt. There's some red shirt people. And what we're seeing here is actually what we call a motion recap. And if you've seen any sort of demo or if you've used the Meraki cameras at all, this is kind of old news. But this is showing us 19 seconds of video in a single view. So without having to actually click on this, I can click on this and watch this video. In fact, let's do that. I can see that person walking down the stairs. I know exactly where they went in the frame without having to actually go here and sit here and watch this 19-second clip. And that probably will help me not watch lots of 19-second clips if I can look at the screen and see what's going on without having to actually watch the video, right? And in this case, we actually see the person's wearing a red shirt and tan pants, right? So, if we're trying to identify somebody even further across the board, we can do that right from here. It doesn't just stop with people. We can do vehicles. So if we had a camera in the parking lot and we wanted to find the white car that hit somebody in the parking lot, we can do that. But also we can narrow it down based on type detection: bikes, motorcycles, cars, buses, trucks, etc. So lots of cool stuff coming to the cloud and otherwise in the network portfolio. But that's about all I had, guys.
Thank you, Jimmy. Ron, I know you had a few words.
Oh yeah, just real quick. Let me share my screen. Let's see. I just wanted to run through this real quick for everyone who's attending. So we're just getting the TAP program stood back up. So we'll have, for the next session next month, we'll have a better registration portal and all that. But I just wanted to share with the group, this is a QR code to our Philadelphia Select website. So if you guys wanted to scan that so you have that, I'll just leave that up for a second. And then I have the website set up here. So on this website, we'll have, we update the registration for TAP, and then we put all sorts of updates out there as well, like around technology. If we have sorry, Eric, do you have something?
It's not sharing.
Oh, why did it not share?
I see a white screen. So it might be security. If you want to just restart.
It could have been because I moved it to my other screen. Let me try that. Thanks for letting me know. How about that? You see that?
I do.
Oh, so there's the QR code I was talking about. So if you want to scan that, it will take you to our Philadelphia Select website, and we will be posting the registration for the TAP sessions here. So you'll be able to see what the topics are and then register for the session. And then we'll set it up so that you get a calendar reminder. We do put all sorts of technology updates on this page. And then as to not flood all of our partners and customers with invites, we also put any upcoming event that we have, we listed here as well. And I did just want to share that Mike did mention that we do record all of the TAP sessions that we hold, and then we do post it on this page as well. It's listed under the tap room. Again, this website is under construction. We're updating it. The person that did run it was promoted to another role. They were not promoted because of how they managed and maintained websites, obviously. But yeah, so all the tap sessions are listed there. When you click on a recording, it will take you to our Philadelphia Select YouTube channel. And then you'll see all of our tap sessions from the past listed there as well. And then you can subscribe to that. So I just wanted to run through that really quickly for all the attendees, just so that you're aware. And you may also notice that everyone in the Philadelphia Select region actually has a hyperlink in their email signature as well that will take you directly to the website. So that's all I wanted to share, Eric. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So I do want to talk about Cisco Live, but I want to say thank you to Jamie. As you can see, this takes a lot of prep work, and there's a lot of new and exciting things that it's happening with Cisco and Meraki. We are trying to focus on making things more simplistic and more integrated. And I think that we've done a pretty good job at that so far. So if you want to get in front of that and kind of see more of those updates, you did get a little bit of a sneak peek because Jamie was sharing some things that were announced at Cisco Live EMEA. But our Cisco Live for San Diego will be June 8th through the 12th. Registration is open, but I did want to go ahead and move through this a little bit just to kind of show you some things where maybe it's not as easy. So one of the things is the package prices. You still have some time to sign up and save some money. You can use your Cisco Learning credits. If you don't know if you have any Cisco Learning credits, just ask your SC or your AM and they'll be happy to help you out. One of the things that we do have is the IT leadership. And what that is, it sounds exactly what it's like, what it sounds like. It's a way for business leaders to kind of get together and talk about, strategizing for that long path so they can kind of understand, get together, network, understand what other people are doing and how to approach things, talk about budget and such. And then
Real quick, I like how on the registration page they said pro tip. This program sold out the past 10 years. Register early.
Oh yeah, and it has sold out every single year. And people seem to love it, so I guess that's why they're still doing it. And just to kind of give you an agenda here, you can see there's a mix of networking and just like different things that apply more at that leadership layer in the OSI model. And then there's, of course, there's a fact page where you can kind of see what these different things. But one of the things that I did want to kind of point out was the hotels. One of the things with hotels, it can be a little bit confusing because they want to know where am I going to stay? And if you go to the hotels here and you see the see hotel map and rates, you'll actually open up to this page. And this kind of shows you where everything's at. And since it's not in Las Vegas this year, I do recommend looking at this before booking so you can kind of get a better idea of where you're at. This is where the convention center is, and these are where everything is, and this is the rates. You do not book through here. Once you do book through your Cisco Live, you'll have an attendee dashboard, and here on the hotel information, you'll actually be able to book from here, and you can select your hotel. So that's just might seem a little confusing as you're going through it, but it'll open up this dashboard and this directly reflects here. So a little bit of work, but I just wanted to make that clear just so that it'd be a little bit more useful. We do have a lot of exciting things going on. We do have our HyperShield product with eBPF. We have our HyperFabric, which is smart switches in the data center. We're going to be doing a lot more with secure access. That product is, coming around just very nicely, and people are adopting it and loving it. So I expect to see a lot more announcements around that. If you have any questions, do reach out. I will be the ambassador, so I'll be there, or you can ask your SC to loop you in through to me. And I'll be happy to answer any questions or give you any insight that I can. Right now, the agenda is still being formulated, so that will be coming out soon. So once that is developed, I will be pushing that out, and I'll push that out to the SC so they can send it out to their teams as well. That's all I have for Cisco Live. Ron, did I miss anything on that Cisco Live front?
Yeah, I'll just, if you are attending Cisco Live, like Eric said, he will be representing the region out in San Diego this year. So just make sure your AM or your SE is aware that you're going so they can add you to the list and we can make sure that Eric takes you out to dinner.
Yes, and happy hour.
And happy hour, which is more important than the dinner. So, yeah. But that's it. That's all we had. So
I hope y'all found this useful. As you can see, Jamie's a heavy hitter. We expect the other sessions to be as good. He did set the standard pretty high. So I hope y'all do find this useful, and you can at least tell your other people to get more involved and go to that tap session. And if you have any questions following up on this, please do reach out.
Good stuff. Thanks, everybody.